Okay, why don't we try to get started? Welcome to our District 6 Town Hall meeting. We've got a great agenda tonight, as we frequently do, and really grateful that you're all here. I want to do a couple of introductions, and then we'll curate questions. You should have received some cards at the table back there. If you haven't and you want one, John Hurley, my intern, can help you with that, or Takako Suzuki, our great field rep. She's really a great field rep. Can we just give it up for Takako Suzuki, please? Yeah, thank you. And I want to do a couple of introductions, and again, this is your meeting. We'll talk about whatever you'd like. I do want to have our guest speakers speak. They've got some good stuff. And want to do a couple of introductions and then sort of just catch you up on what we've been up to at City Hall, as I regularly do at these meetings. In terms of introductions, first and foremost, I want to give a big shout out tonight to the newest board member elect for the Pasadena Unified School District. She's a constituent, a resident, a San Rafael parent. Yarma Velasquez is here, and I want to say hey, Yarma. Yeah. I followed that campaign with a lot of interest, and there were two friends of mine that were in that campaign. Juan Pablo Alvan, Yarma's opponent, was someone who worked for me as a lawyer in my day job for many years. I worked very closely with Juan Pablo, and I came to know him and admire his dedication and integrity. And of course, I've known Yarma through, mainly, initially, at least through her husband, Daniel Rossman, who has been our District 6 appointee to the Environmental Advisory Commission, now serves on the Santa Monica Conservancy Board. So these are very busy, dedicated people, and we're super grateful, Yarma, for your service, and look forward to working with you on the board. I want to introduce our public safety chiefs. I asked them to come, and they're the best. I think we have the best in the state, you know. And I'm going to introduce three. Frequently we think about, police and fire, right? These are the guys, I tease both of them because the firefighters run into burning buildings, right? Who does that? And then the police run towards, shots being fired. Who does that? But they do that to protect us, and they do a great job. But in Pasadena, you also have to think about the third leg of the public safety stool, which is our city public health department. And certainly public safety is a big part of that. And, remember, we're only one of 3 cities in the state of California that have a city public health department. And boy, did that ever serve us well during COVID and in many, many other ways. So let me introduce our police chief, Jason Clausen. There in the back. Thank you, Jason. You don't need to speak. Come on up, have a seat. I guess we've got seats for you here right up in the first row. Our fire chief, Chad Augustine. And our public health director, Manuel Carmona. Thank you. So we are, fully into the fall now at City Hall, and I feel like we just came off of our summer recess. We usually take 4 weeks off in the summertime. It's a combination of 2 meetings that are usually canceled in August for vacations, and then Labor Day weekend we don't meet because of the holiday, the Labor Day holiday, and that means that we have 4 weeks in between council meetings, and yet now we're fully into mid-November, and very soon we'll be wrapping up with our final meetings of the year, getting ready for, normally I'd say New Year's Day, but of course this year New Year's Day falls on a Sunday, so the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl game will both be on Monday, January 2nd. I love that because, and I think probably we all do, because it means we actually get to have a New Year's Eve. I usually wake up about 3 a.m. on New Year's Day to get ready for all the events, and this year it'll be on the 2nd because of a tradition that we don't have those events on Sunday when they fall on a Sunday, so it'll be on Monday the 2nd. You may recall I serve on the city as the City Council's representative to the Rose Bowl Operating Company, So spending a lot of time, energy, and resources on the Rose Bowl and all of the challenges that the Rose Bowl has financially and all of the great opportunities as well. And happy to talk about that tonight if you'd like. We're excited about this Saturday's game, although a little disappointed that our tenant, the UCLA Bruins, lost last weekend, but I'm trying to see the cup as half full. You know, the Bruins are really going to be fired up to beat USC, their crosstown rival. And I just got a note before I came over that the game is sold out by the Rose Bowl. So that's just what the doctor ordered. So USC, UCLA. You know, of course, that USC and UCLA have announced their intention to move to the Big Ten. That would be great for the Rose Bowl if it actually is consummated, because those Big Ten teams, you know, since they were yay high, they dream about going to Pasadena. They associate it with New Year's Day and the Rose Bowl game and all, and they generally travel really well. So if we can look forward to a couple of years, if the move is, you know, actually consummated, which we think it will be, you know, you'll have regular visits from teams like Michigan and Ohio State and Iowa, Wisconsin, you know, teams that travel big, and it'll really help the Rose Bowl with our college football. There's a World Cup starting next week, I think over the weekend even. We were competing for the 2026 World Cup, which will be in North America and also in Southern California, in LA, but we were unsuccessful in that for the Rose Bowl. They're going to SoFi Stadium, which is kind of the bright and shiny object of arena stadiums, if you will, these days. So we were disappointed, but we're very confident that in 2028 that we will have Olympic soccer back at the Rose Bowl. And that'll make LA, I think, one of only 2 or 3 cities that have had 3 Olympic Games in the modern era. I think maybe Paris will have joined us by then, and there may be one other, but super excited about that as well. So I could stand up here and talk forever. You never give a politician, lawyer, an open mic, but I do want to get to our program and introduce, first and foremost, somebody that just started basically when we came back from our summer recess, and that's our new city manager. And Miguel Márquez is here. I'm going to introduce him, and then I'll ask him to share observations and thoughts and even goals and visions that he may have. So let me sort of give you a little bit of Miguel's credentials. Miguel is a lawyer, full disclosure. Now, of course, as a lawyer myself, I'm always laugh at lawyers' jokes because we love them. I love lawyers' jokes. But, you know, time and time again, when we have complex problems, and if you look in state and federal offices and local, you know, there are lawyers for good reason. You know, we're trained to think analytically. Increasingly, the world we live in is quite legalistic in all of the different overlays that we have to deal with and all. So through his career, Miguel was a county counsel. He was actually a judge on the Court of Appeal in the district up in the Bay Area. And then most recently, he was the chief operating officer for Santa Clara County, which is a huge county. And he had, you know, oversight over, I can't remember, some huge number of, I think, tens of thousands of employees and multiple billions of budgets. So we were super excited when he threw his hat in the ring. We had a lot of candidates. I think, if I recall, we had 66 candidates for city manager, and we spent really a 3-day weekend interviewing 10 finalists and then 3 finalists. And just everything that kept coming back to us was just so positive. I talked to a friend of mine, Ann Ravel, who was the head of the Fair Political Practices Commission and the head of the FEC, and small world, she worked with Miguel, I think, when you were both at Santa Clara County Council's office, and she just raved and went on and on about Miguel. I finally had to tell her, Ann, we already hired him. You can stop, you know. But super excited, and I think, you know, it's a lot of work learning about Pasadena and learning about the way our city operates in the Pasadena way, but predictably, Miguel's dived right in and is doing a great job for us already. It's a big job, you know. Chief Executive Officer of a municipal services organization with about 2,400 employees, with a budget soaking wet, approaching $1 billion, with a water and power. You have to learn how to run a utility. With a Rose Bowl stadium, you have to learn how to run a stadium. With a public health department that the city manager oversees, and on and on. And you know, Pasadena is a special place. We demand a lot from our elected and appointed officials, but we really know that Miguel's up to the job. So, Miguel, will you say a word or two? Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It's such a pleasure to be here tonight. And first and foremost, I always want to thank, well, all of you, frankly, for electing Councilmember Madison to his role, and the other members of the City Council that were gracious enough to select me to have this honor to serve as your city manager. Tonight is special, and for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the reasons is this is a first for me. I have never spoken to a crowd underneath a disco ball. So it's a first. I will remember it forever. But I was asked to talk about how the transition is going. I think it's going very, very well. You know, overall, I would say I just spent so many years working in local government, starting back in 1998 for the County of San Mateo. I worked for the City and County of San Francisco, for the San Francisco Unified School District, for the County of Santa Clara, for a whole bunch of different school districts as well, as their lawyer. That I think I've just seen so many different problems presented in so many different ways that I come here, and this is the first time I've been a city manager. As Mr. Madison said, I was chief operating officer for a county, so a lot more of my experience is in counties, but it's the same thing. It's problems, local government problems, looking at all the issues, trying to be a problem solver with the right people in the right room, trying to move us forward. So the transition has been going extremely well. I've been spending quite a bit of time working on building a team. I have about 16 department heads, and about 5 of them were vacant when I got here. So I'm in the process of, for example, in the moment looking and finalizing a process for a police chief, finalizing a process for the general manager of water and power. I also have to then move on to look for a director of human resources, a director of the library system, our incredible library system here. And then also for the assistant city manager, I have one of those positions vacant. So putting the team together, it's been a great experience. And then the last piece I'll just say about a transition, it's been not as challenging as I thought, but I am transitioning to becoming a Dodgers fan. It was, it's a job requirement, it's necessary, and it was kind of easy because the Dodgers are the Dodgers. They have character and personality like the city. I will, full disclosure, I will not become either a Lakers or a Clippers fan. I'm going to stick with the Warriors because I'm from the Bay Area, so my apologies for that. I just want to be transparent. I also want to note, people have asked me often, you know, do you live in Pasadena? And I always find that question interesting. Why wouldn't I? I mean, I have the opportunity. I came from San Jose. So when I moved down, of course I'm going to live in Pasadena, so I live here in Pasadena. I think the only problem I'm having is finding reasons to leave at all, because everything you need is here. You could just stay here all year and not leave. So I realize there's an ocean. I realize there's other parts of Southern California. I like it here. So I'm working on seeing the rest of Southern California. A few observations I was asked to give. One, just so pleased. People say, has anything surprised you? Nothing surprised me because I've seen so much in my career. But a lot has impressed me. And you know, first and foremost, just how well run the city is. I mean, to be the beneficiary of all that work that has been done in advance. I mean, you just have to drive around and see how well the city is run. If you do get the opportunity to go other places, you see a lot more graffiti. We don't have a lot of graffiti here because we have that citizen service app where if you see it, you all are sending it in and the graffiti gets removed hopefully within 24, if not 48 hours. Things like that, you know, all the underground power that we have here just makes the city so beautiful. We sometimes take that for granted because we don't see it. We don't see all the power poles, but it does make for an incredibly well-run city that I think has all the component parts to be a model city for other cities in Los Angeles County. I still can't get over the fact there are 88 cities in this county, something like that, just 33 in the San Gabriel Valley. That's just amazing to me. But we here in Pasadena have everything all the component parts, all the experience, all that's here, that makes us, gives us the ability to be that model city for everyone else. You know, as I was thinking about what to talk about, I thought about what makes this city so special, and just some of the institutions came to mind. So I wrote down Caltech and JPL, the Rose Bowl, the Tournament of Roses Parade, the Art Center College of Design, Huntington Hospital, Norton Simon, the Langham, a ton of restaurants. I'm trying not to go to the same restaurant twice, which is hard because there's so many good ones, but so many amazing restaurants. I think a lot of cities would boast if they had just one of those things. And we have them all, and then a whole bunch more. Another thing about the city, you know, when I was vetting whether or not I wanted to make the move, to give you the numbers, Santa Clara County has 23,000 employees, so it's about 10 times bigger than the city, and had about an $11.5 billion budget, so maybe, you know, 11.5 times bigger than the city. When I was vetting whether to come here, someone who worked here some time ago said, for whatever reason, Pasadena hires smart people, and they stay for a really long time. And that's really been true. That's been my experience. I'm so glad to have smart people to work with, including Mr. Reyes here to my left and so many others, the chiefs and everybody else, and our director of public health. So that's been just such a blessing. And then the community, incredibly diverse. You know, you look at the population statistics, lots of major racial groups represented, Latinos, African Americans, white, Asian, just somebody, you know, I'll just say who was Vice Mayor Wilson was trying to, you know, have me make the decision to come to Pasadena. And he said, Miguel, look at us, diversity is our superpower. And that really resonated with me. And I see that diversity everywhere we go throughout the city, so that's been beautiful. I've noticed another observation is our big focus on process. We're a very process-oriented city, but it's terrific. When you drive around, you see the result of that process. And I think we're blessed to have the city we have because of the process, so hopefully people have patience with the good process that we engage in at the city. And finally, my big picture observation is, you know, there are disagreements among us here in the city, but when you really think about it, the disagreement is not about the what we want to get accomplished. I think we have consensus about that. We tend to argue about the how. How do we get there? But to have consensus about the kind of society it feels to me that we all want to build, you know, in my sort of high-level conception of it, we all want a more just, a more inclusive, a more equitable society, one where everyone feels they belong and enjoys all of the richness that this city has to offer. You know, how we get there, it's always going to be a work in progress. Things change all the time. But the level of citizen engagement, the number of events that I get to attend all the time and meet all of you is incredible. So, you know, I look here and I see Bob, who I've been at numerous events with. I see Charles, who I've been at numerous events with. So that's two. And over the years, I hope I get to call you all by name and know who you are and work with you on building, again, a more just, a more inclusive, a more equitable society. But I can promise to you that I will do my level best as your city manager to, at its foundation, continue to the city to be a well-run city that meets all of your municipal needs, to keep the lights on, to keep the water running, to keep the streets clean and safe. All of that is foundational to building the kind of society that we want. So thank you so much for your patience. With this, I will end my one and only under a disco ball introduction, but I look forward to working with all of you for many, many years to come. Thank you so much.
We're really delighted that Miguel is here, and a lot of things that we're working on together very closely already. And John, are we curating questions? Are we going to hold those till the end? Do we have cards or okay. All right. Well, why don't we take a minute now if there are any questions for our new city manager. Happy to entertain those, or for me, obviously, on what you've heard so far. Yes, hi.
Did you find housing?
Did you find housing, Miguel?
Yes.
Yes, proud to report that, yeah. And you are living in the city, if I recall, right?
Yes, I am in the city of Pasadena.
Yeah. Miguel has really an impressive extended family. His sister, whom I met at his sort of induction reception that we held in the courtyard, is a Superior Court judge in Riverside County. If I recall, she was the first Latina Superior Court judge in Riverside County, which, is surprising, but also a very proud accomplishment, for her. So it must be tough, over Thanksgiving dinners and stuff. If she's the judge, she can, So I mentioned the courtyard. I should probably just right now give a shout out for an event that we're have planned for December 4th, which is a Sunday in the afternoon from 2 to 4. We'll be dedicating the courtyard in City Hall, which is a beautiful space, the Bill and Claire Bogard courtyard, and super, super excited about that. Yeah, thank you. Bill and Claire are, really pleased about that. The whole council is super excited, and we have a plaque, and it'll be fun. So hoping the weather holds up, and but we have alternative plans if not, and it'll be very cool, in perpetuity to have people say, we're having a reception later in Bogard Courtyard. So it's an appropriate honor for Bill and Claire. Other questions for me or Miguel at this point? If not, we can move to our next agenda item, which is our relationship with PUSD. Let me start it off. We've got Liz Pomeroy, who's the president of the school board, here with us. Worked with Liz an awfully long time as well, and it's been a very positive relationship for me personally. And we are certainly try as hard as we can to support our school district. It's extremely important. I do regularly speak to people who assume that the city council is responsible for curriculum and administration of the district because probably the name, and they just haven't learned about the separate organizations. And so they are separate. The district has its own board and covers an area larger than just the city of Pasadena, but it's a very important relationship for the city. We only have one school in our council district, and that's a real shame in my book, as over the years the demographics have changed and many parents choose private education, which, with schools like Westridge and the like, it's understandable. But I think there was a time when we had 5 or 6 elementary schools in West Pasadena. And some of them you can still see, Linda Vista School, which we've turned into a park, again, working very closely with the district, and we're grateful for that. But the one school that we still have in our city council district is San Rafael. We were kind of on the brink there a few years back because there was an earthquake analysis that found seismic issues. We were real concerned about that. We worked hard. I know Liz did too, and the school board, and we were able to keep San Rafael open, and it's a great school, and we're super proud to have that in our district in West Pasadena. We have a library within walking distance, usually like right across the street of all of our elementary schools. Thank you, by the way, for so overwhelmingly supporting Measure L, which was our library parcel tax. I know many of you, George, I think you worked on that. A lot of folks supported that, and it's a good thing. And I'm really buoyed when I see an electorate that says, 68, 70, whatever the ratio was. Yes, we're willing to spend money as a taxpayer if it's being well spent. And, the schools are certainly an example of that. PCC had an initiative also that, as I understand, passed, and that's a good thing as well. There was an episode at San Rafael recently that you probably heard about, and I know I've heard from a number of you about it, and I want to just touch on that. I think I want to be measured because it does relate to a personnel issue at the school. And of course, just like the city council, the city manager is the operational executive and supervises the employees of the city, not the city council. We make policy, but we only have 3 direct reports: the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. Similarly, the board of the district makes policy and approves the budget and so forth, but those employment decisions are made by the superintendent, Dr. Brian McDonald. So I want to be measured in terms of that, but I do want to address the part that the city was involved in. And tell you that essentially what happened is on a Sunday morning, we received a call for service to the police department that sounded like a pedestrian, somebody that might have been walking near the school, but it wasn't clear, had observed someone whom he described varying ways, but as possibly a tall female with a backpack who hopped the fence and entered the school property. And expressed some reservation then later about whether or not it was a female or a male, but definitely hopped the fence in the back of the school, definitely had a backpack. And, you know, for our police department, when we receive a call like that, we respond promptly, and we have to treat that as a very serious call. And a lot of the exchanges, and I've got a whole file thicker than this of emails and calls and, you know, concerns about it. And a lot of them are like, well, turned out to just be a custodian. Why did the police have to treat the call the way they did? The problem, of course, is we don't know what the call will turn out to be. And there are, you know, protocols and procedures that are used. And in this case, near as I can tell, they were followed to the letter. The district uses a security firm that is actually quite good, in my view, to provide security at the school campuses, and our police department is very familiar with that security company. And so our officers made a call, I don't recall if it was the officers or the sergeant, but they made a call to the security company when the call came in. And unfortunately, it had not been reported to the security company that there would be a district employee on campus that day. Had that security company known that, and my understanding was there was a policy that call should have been made, then it might have been that things could have been handled differently. But when the response was negative, we're not aware of that, and our officers reported they were responding, then that adds another layer, you know, for us, another fact, and a request that the security company respond also, because they do have security present. And it's a big campus. You know, if you walk around, it's an elementary school, but I'm sure those of you who know it, you know, there are a number of buildings and a large area and all the rest. And you hate to think about the worst possibility, but it could include a firearm or an explosive device or some, you know, even a commercial burglary, the theft of computers or of a vandalism case. Those are all criminal activities that our officers have to be prepared to deal with. So when they arrived, they could see through the chain link fence that a door to the school was open and it appeared that somebody was inside. And there again, now all they know is they've had a report, call for service, there's someone on the campus, the security company doesn't know that anybody should be there that day. And so they called back to the security company, said, the door's open, there appears to be some, can you please send all of your units? And we're asking for backup as well until we can assess the situation. And basically what then ensued is the officers forced entry onto the campus, and there was a male who was there. They handcuffed him, detained him, and very quickly determined that he was a custodian for the school. Some people have said, well, Steve, he was wearing a PUSD shirt, so they should have immediately, you know, essentially waved and gone on about their business. No, we had a homicide recently where, really a horrible homicide, where the individual that committed the homicide, allegedly, I'll say that because it's still in court, but was wearing a security outfit for the establishment where the homicide occurred. So, you know, our police really can't, and you know, I was a prosecutor for many years. I've seen these cases. And so after it was confirmed that the individual was properly there, was an employee of the district, he was no longer detained. There was an urban myth that our officers had drawn guns on the gentleman. They did have weapons, but they were not gun, you know, what you think of as a gun, a firearm with a bullet. They were with the sort of non-lethal bullets, just in case it turned out that there was something as they approached the school. I've reviewed the tape myself, the 911 call, the videotape a number of different times, and you know, I think the procedures were complied with. It's hard to watch somebody be handcuffed, especially someone that you now know is there lawfully and properly. But he said he was fine, it was cool. Later, he's captured on another videotape basically saying, yeah, no big deal. I knew I had to comply, and I did, and went about my business. So definitely regrettable. The principal made some statements, then he responded, made a number of statements. I know this principal very well for a long, long time. The person that I heard in that video is not someone that I've ever, sort of observed or heard. He was, I think having a bad morning, probably in part because he was protective of the custodian there and was upset, and it was all unexpected and stressful. And again, for the district, that may present issues that they will handle, confidentially in the process of the employment. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for that school always, because it's a great school. If you haven't spent time there, I recommend it. I'm looking forward to being back there for one of these types of community meetings, which we've had over the years, and the principal's been a very warm and gracious host to us. So those are my thoughts about that. I want to give Liz an opportunity to come up and just talk about what's happening over at the district, and obviously talk about that if you can or want to, but also don't feel compelled, Liz. I know that, again, we want to be respectful of boundaries and our roles. But Liz has done a fabulous job on the board. You're stepping away, as I understand. Yeah, and when will that be? When you'll be stepping away from the board? December 5th. Liz is retiring, so can we give her an especially warm welcome as she comes up here?
Happy to be here with you. I see people that I know out there. Happy to be here with you. My topic is the collaboration between the City of Pasadena and PUSD, the Pasadena Unified School District. And so, first of all, I want you to visualize a Venn diagram. You know what those are. 2 circles or possibly more. Where they overlap at that central point. So this circle is going to be the City of Pasadena, which is a large and complex organization. This one will be Pasadena Unified School District, smaller, but also a complex organization, educating about 15,000 students from age toddler to young adult. So what I want to tell you about very briefly is that central overlap where the city and the school district meet. In the middle of that Venn diagram, it's a lot of vitality, activity, and service to young people, children and youth. That's basically what we share. So I have 4 examples for you of collaborations. The first one is Measure J. Measure J, you recall, there was first Measure I, which went to the voters to provide a small increase in the sales tax. Measure J said if Measure I passes, 1/3 of the additional sales tax should come to the public schools. And they both passed. As you remember, I hope you voted for them. Anyway, a Measure J passed with an even higher percentage than Measure I. So that was a good vote of confidence in our schools. The amount of revenue to the school district is about $7 million a year. And how do we use that? We use it to stabilize the required reserve for our district, and also to sustain some special programs, signature programs that we have, like the dual language program, which is at San Rafael School, International Baccalaureate, and other programs. So that's Measure J, collaboration between the city and the school district. My second example is various joint use agreements for the use of campus space that we have. The a good example is Jefferson Elementary School is leased by the city. You're aware of this, Mr. City Manager, I believe. I just stopped by there today. There are 2 rooms dedicated to the public library. The children and the teens are there. Also, the fire department training is there. And what else is there? The PALS, the police program is there. And I was just told that the recreation department is going to establish pickleball at Jefferson Elementary. These are areas that are serving the city as well as using the school district space. There are also new gyms at McKinley and at Washington, which is now Octavia E. Butler School. Those are partly financed by the city, and they're open to the public. Those gyms are open to the public, the after-school hours and on weekends. Madison Elementary is another space where the field is open to the public part of the time. So that's another collaboration. I have 4 examples. My third example is the health department. Especially during the pandemic times, the PUSD health staff was very attached to Dr. Go and to the health department of the city of Pasadena. It was a huge kind of steadying influence to us as we had to decide, remember all these decisions about masking or vaccinations, and should it be required or should it be recommended? We always relied on the guidance and felt that we would follow what was recommended by the Pasadena Health Department, because it was what you call hyper-local, right? Not just the county or the state, but right here, what did we need from our own health department? So that's my third example. And still, I hope this interaction is still continuing. Yes, he says yes. Good. And my fourth example is Collaborate Pasadena. I don't know if any of you are involved with that. Are you involved with that? Collaborate Pasadena began initially, 5 or 6 years ago? Was it? Something like that. It was first called the City School Partnership. So that was very clear. Now it's called Collaborate Pasadena, which is a bit more elevated sounding. But what that is a framework for a number of organizations to work together, the schools and the city. There are many joint concerns that we have. For example, early childhood. The city is concerned, and we have our own programs for early childhood. Mental health, safety, issues of various kinds are forged together when there are meetings of Collaborate Pasadena. And to conclude, I would say that in my 13 years on the school board, I have not seen such a close, tight, and mutually beneficial relationship as I see now between the city and the school district. It wasn't like this 13 years ago. But now there are many elements that we share, and recognizing each other's work in a valuable way. So I leave you with my favorite proverb. And many of you have heard me say this before. This is a proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. You've heard this. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that I thank you, Councilmember Madison, for inviting me, and I hope that we will continue to go together.
Thank you, Liz, and I think largely because of your leadership, the relationship is very strong, and we're grateful for your service. And you know, these are our kids, right? It's not like these kids are flown in from another state every day or something. These are Pasadena's kids going to our schools. And, I attended public schools all the way through graduation of high school. And it's the great thing about our country that, with education and hard work, you can reach your full potential as a child. And in most countries, that's still not true. If you're not born with economic advantage or social status, in almost every other country in the world, there are ceilings that you will hit. Not in this country. I was raised by a single mom. You look at President Obama as a great example of that. So it is just so important. And of course, the old axiom is true. We'll spend millions on jail cells and courts and all the rest, but man, it's hard to get money to spend for early childhood, after school program, all the things that will prevent those problems down the road. But we're going to keep plugging away. And there's many other things we could talk about, Liz, right, in terms of the collaboration, parks and recreation, for example, after school program, the libraries, again, a big beneficiary of your largesse in the form of Prop L is our schools and our school kids. And we're very, very proud of that. My son graduated from PHS, I have to listen to Mayor Gordo brag about PHS all the time, The turkey tussle this year was a blowout. I was down on the field, PHS, so Gordo was strutting around. Hampton was, down in the dumps. But these are great kids in our schools, and they do amazing things. So again, let's plan on meeting soon for San Rafael. And I know they have a number of programs where community members can volunteer and support the efforts of the school, read. You can read to the kids and the like, and they need our help. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Can we just give it up one more time for Liz Pomeroy? Questions about schools, the school district, the relationship, about Liz. We do 2 joint meetings a year between the council and the, at least in normal years, it's 2. I know Miguel and I have talked about the next one, and the mayor, scheduled these things with the district, but I think we're planning one for February in the new year, February the spring?
Early March.
Early March, yeah. And of course, that'll give an opportunity for us to meet the new board members and for the new board members to meet the new council members. We will have 2 new council members effectively by then. My good friend and colleague, current Vice Mayor Andy Wilson, is retiring from the City Council, District 7, and Jason Lyon, who is a very impressive lawyer. Sorry, I got just the truth. He's a lawyer as well at Hahn & Hahn, a longtime lawyer there at a great local firm. He'll be joining the council. And then we've appointed temporarily Justin Jones in District 3, and that appointment will come up again probably on the 12th of December at our council meeting. For the remainder, my good friend and colleague John Kennedy passed away, as you probably know, and that was a big blow to the council because it was, for most of us, very unexpected. And John had just won re-election. Taka, yes, sorry. Oh, okay. He had just won re-election, so it's a very quirky situation and obviously tragic to lose John, but because he had already won re-election, we had to do 2 appointments, one for the remainder of this term through December 12th, and then on probably December 5th, now that I think of it, and then on December 12th, our reorganization is December 12th, so it'll be through then, and then we'll appoint, and I would expect that the same person would be reappointed, Justin Jones, who's a very impressive young man. So please, Taka, yes. The question is about the declining enrollment for the district, which is something I think on all of our minds. I know it's on the districts. I think if I recall, Miguel and I were just talking about this, the district is around 14,000 now. Is that
between 14 and 15?
between 14 and 15,000. And the question that Tuck asks is, what are the projections about that? And please, or can I hand this to, we keep it here? Okay, good. Just please do watch your step.
Yes, I think it's important to realize that a large number of districts in the state have declining enrollment, including LAUSD. They're working on this, on accommodating this situation there. And I think half or more than half of the districts in the state have declining enrollment. Perhaps you have even seen, there was a headline on the front page of the Times some months back with the question, where are the children? So the number of school-age children is declining. So this, of course, impacts the school district greatly because our revenue from the state depends on enrollment, depends on attendance, actually. But so it does impact us. Our superintendent has set up a strategic planning process with 5 different design teams, with a lot of community involvement, and some consultants to help us see the way through this. One of the 5 is enrollment, how to message, how to understand the community and what they need so that we can stabilize the enrollment and keep the revenue and keep our campuses and keep things steady. So that is a very active task force that is working on this, researching it, and sometime in January we'll have a report from them about enrollment.
I appreciate your comments. I'm obviously very sorry for your experience. I can't say I disagree that the comments that were captured on the video were completely improper and out of line. And I'm sure you've shared your views with the district, and the board does have oversight over the school district. I'm quite sure of that. And it is a personnel matter, so I know even if the superintendent, Dr. McDonald, were here, he'd be limited in what he might be able to say about the situation. But I'm not in any way repudiating anything that you said. I hear you. And it is concerning, no question, yeah. And especially for any of us that are in a position to model behavior for young people, Now, I hope there's a teachable moment in all that, right? That, that we all have bad days sometimes. And again, I'm not describing that episode, but I think we all know that, I don't know, anybody have a jar at home when the kids were little, and if you said a certain word, you had to put money in it. I know I did, and this clearly went far beyond that. So you're right. I don't know, Liz, if you want to make a comment or not about it.
I don't.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. And will you please make sure we have your information, because I'd like to follow up with you offline. Thank you so much. Yep. I saw some hands over here, and then I'll come back. I just can't hear you, probably because of the mask. I apologize. No, it's quite all right. Well, for kids that withdraw from a school, and we should say, the thing about any number is that you need to be able to compare it to something. So I hear 16 children leaving an elementary school in 5 years. Honestly, that doesn't sound like a lot to me. We have a number of kids who come in and out, but if you're saying for a particular reason, that would be different. And in terms of where they go, I'm sure there are 16 different answers for those kids. Well, for sure, the district was well aware of the episode. And again, I just know what is available publicly, but there was an investigation. There were closed session, I know, agenda items for the board as they interfaced with the superintendent. And I'm quite sure that the superintendent took action that he believed was appropriate to address the situation. But that's a personnel matter, and legally, he just can't speak publicly about it. Well, I had heard, again, publicly that he was not on campus for a while. That would suggest that maybe there was some period of time that You know, I actually, did everyone hear the comment? I can repeat it. Yeah. You know, I actually asked to attend that meeting, but I was told it was just for parents, and that was fine. Obviously, that was Dr. McDonald's decision, you know, to do that. And I wouldn't have added anything other than being able to learn and listen. So, again, I know that you all are expressing yourself to the district and to the board, as you should. I will tell you it's really hard because we have personnel issues sometimes in the city. And I mean, the lawyers are apoplectic about legally what we can and can't do. It could open up the city, in my case, to litigation if I'm speaking openly about personnel matters involving an employee's rights. So it's a delicate balance of that. But yes, sir. Yes, it sounds like Liz can, and we can both follow up on that if there's any ambiguity about it.
Yes,
yeah.
The superintendent is planning a community meeting.
Okay. Superintendent is planning a community meeting.
Any idea when that would be?
No, I don't have a date.
So we'll follow up with Liz offline and push that, because that information we can help.
Yes.
Has that been determined, Liz? Who would be invited? Is it for the whole community or the parent community? Or?
I don't know, the whole community
Yeah.
or the neighborhood or
Okay.
your district.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll follow up offline about those things. And again, important issue, and I'm grateful that you all came out to address that. And I'm very sorry. You know, nothing will get your blood boiling, I know, about than your family or your children. And you know, let's make it all a teachable moment if we can. Taka, you're pointing. Time to move on? Okay. Okay. Well, another big development that the city manager and I and the mayor and the whole council really are very excited about, and that David Reyes has much responsibility on presently, is the 710 freeway stump. So if you haven't heard, the freeway's dead, and yeah, and the city now owns the freeway stump, what we call the trench or the ditch, or that portion of the property that was actually intended to be used as a roadway. That's now been conveyed back to the city of Pasadena. I testified at the final hearing where the California Transportation Commission made that decision, and it was fabulous. And get this, they actually, not only did they give us the property back, but they gave us a check for $5 million on top of it. So, you know, such a deal. Now, the fine print is that that'll help us do some remediation studies and some things that we have to do as now the owner and the steward of that property. But this is an historic opportunity for a city that's pretty built out to take, I always think of it as about 50 acres, David, you know, 50 acres of property, and vision, I would hope in some part repatriate, because, you know, that land, if you look at some photos, and David's got some, so we'll get to him right now, but huge opportunity. And it's in our district, but it's an issue of citywide importance. Believe me, all my colleagues are really fired up and interested in this. And so, you know, we're done with that process, with the relinquishment, and now we have to begin the hard work, and it'll be long work too. You know, Coach Wooden used to say, be quick, but don't hurry. And I think that's the watchword here, right? Let's get it right. And but it's a tremendous opportunity to accomplish some things, and the community is going to be very involved. Before I have David come up, I just want to mention also the houses, the Caltrans houses. There are about 105 of those, and we're also working very hard on those as well in terms of getting those back into the hands either of the city or of the tenants, or perhaps some third-party purchaser, and then using those funds for things that we want to do, like affordable housing in the city and the like. So David Reyes is someone you will not meet, and we got a lot of great staff here, but you will not meet a better department head than David. He's extremely dedicated and responsive, and so of course now the city manager has appointed him interim assistant city manager, and he's got even more work to do, but we're grateful that you're here and grateful for your work, David. And David Reyes, please welcome him.
I understand that the reason we don't have the parade on Sunday is because of the church bells that would spook the horses carrying the floats. And so that's the, I don't think that's a myth, I think that's actual fact, but Mick could correct me. So this is absolutely something that many of you have been fighting for many, many years. I know that Councilmember Madison has been fighting for this personally since before he was a council member, more than 20 years, I'm sure. And it's official. We have the recorded documents. The property does belong to the city. And as Councilmember Madison mentioned, the Caltrans did give us $5 million for maintenance of the ditch and also to do some remedial studies. We know that that area potentially would have some toxic soil, some contamination, so we want to do all those studies to understand that. And really, this land that we're talking about, the majority of it is within that ditch area, about 50 acres, but there are other areas also that have been relinquished to the city, sidewalks and some other easements as well. And in looking at these photos, it's very clear the displaced community that was established really leaves a scar and disconnected the city. And it's an opportunity that we have to really reconnect and restitch the urban fabric of the city in a way that really only Pasadena can. And I think this is an opportunity not only for the state, but really the entire country to look at how to repatriate, how to restitch urban fabric, how to reconnect communities. And what a wonderful opportunity, because as Councilmember Madison indicated, this is a built-out city. We are built out. And the opportunity for potential housing, for open space, for commercial uses is really exciting. This is a view of the property. We see that it extends all the way. You see Norton Simon and Union Street there, all the way down to California. And it really is an incredible area and opportunity. Another shot from the other side. And what we had presented at the staff in terms of going to council was really a process where we would understand some technical issues. Can we fill in the ditch? Can we fill in portions of it? What would reconnecting some of the roadways look like? And we really thought of doing some feasibility analysis and studies, and then really getting into the community with vision plan and opportunity to talk about concepts. And when we went to council, it was really important to the city council that we actually engage the community sooner and really start the visioning process as a first step so that we wouldn't be driven by the feasibility, but we'd really have a vision that the community and the council wanted to see, and then we would be able to sort of do some analysis on that and execute. So we really, that's the goal, is to start that process and then do some feasibility sort of alongside it, and then work on the specific documents. This really lends itself, I don't want to get too wonkish, but to really some form-based code and some contextual sort of design standards that will ensure that the scale and massing of the development that there is what the community expects. And that's what we want to see. So really what we're talking about is the city council at an upcoming meeting establishing a task force, first and foremost, that will help guide the process, a community task force appointed by the city council. And really the composition of that, while it's important to recognize the location as it relates to West Pasadena and ensuring that the transportation network that gets reconnected and redone doesn't result in a massive amount of traffic going into this part of the city, but we rather sort of divert it and really create this sort of highways to boulevard concepts is so important and something that the community really needs to be a part of. And there will be an opportunity. And this is kind of sort of how we envision that looking like, that the council, obviously setting policy for the city, will be engaged, and there'll be public input throughout, not only through community meetings involving everybody, but through the 710 task force that will be created, as well as city commissions, and all those will be opportunities for the public to participate. We anticipate, as we talked about, this is about a 3-year process just for the planning. And the reality is that it's important. It's important that we get it right, and it's important that there's community input and community buy-in because of the opportunities that we see here. And the council has already stated some goals for us to help guide the process. We know that the idea of the displaced community needs to be analyzed, looked at. We need to understand what that looks like in terms of some form of restorative justice. It needs to be a community-driven process. And the opportunity for understanding this housing opportunity, this commercial opportunity, the fiscal potential that exists to help the city continue to sort of operate in the black is really important, especially going forward. We know that we have a housing crisis in the state, and we know that the City Council has done a great job with SB 9, and it is important that we have the character of the community that we have developed and worked so hard. I think Mr. Márquez talked about process here, and the process is important because it results in a community that we want to see. And we would expect the same thing to happen here with this 40 or 50 acres as we look to develop it. So we're really at the infancy. We're looking to the City Council to provide guidance to staff. We're looking to engage qualified consultants, experts in the field of architecture and urban design to help us through that process. And we're really lucky we have a lot of experts in the city. And we look to do an RFP and help staff along in that process and bring forward to the City Council consultants that we think will actually give us, this is an opportunity once in a lifetime is an understatement. This is an opportunity that we need architects, designers of world renown. And that's what we expect, and we expect that the community will be highly engaged as we move forward. But we are at the very beginning of the process, and we'll be working closely with the City Council as we seek guidance and as we start the process of engaging the community. My email is here, as Mr. Madison indicated. I'm currently involved in the process. I hope to continue in my role as Assistant City Manager, and so these duties would maybe go to somebody else, but it is important that the City Manager and the Council be involved because it affects all the departments citywide. And I think that's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to turn it over to Councilmember Madison. Let me leave it there. I think that's a nice photo there.
Thank you, David. Yes, sir. So questions about the 710? I thought you might have some. Gosh. Yes. The question is whether we plan to collaborate with South Pasadena, and I can start to answer that, David. I would say we certainly do. I speak regularly to the council members down there who are heavily interested in this. I would say that there was probably the need and opportunity for more collaboration when it was more a transportation project. But having said that, transportation is still an important aspect here because we are looking at the transportation modalities that will need to be addressed. So I'm sure we will. We've also collaborated on the Caltrans houses, compared strategies and approaches and all with them. So I'm sure we will continue to do that. And David, if you have anything to add. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. Good thought. And we've done that in other instances. I know, for example, I think it may have been Arlington Gardens, where college students in the landscape and gardening space. George, am I misremembering that at one point they contributed? Yeah. And, we have Art Center College of Design here in town, and I'm sure harnessing all of that and having continuity and accountability, but it's a great idea. And maybe when we do select a consultant, architect, project manager, however you define all that, it'd be something we could talk to them about. It is definitely true that we need to consider not just, the world that we're all used to, but also the world as it'll be 50 years from now, right, to the extent we can. Yes, Liz, please.
Yes, I had a thought. I remember going at PCC to a charrette, a design charrette,
yes,
related to transportation in the city. And that was something that anyone in the city could come to and leave comments about.
Liz's comment is about the charrettes that were held. And I don't know if that one was the 710 related, because there were a series of those.
I think it was the general plan.
The general plan transportation element, or David, you were probably involved in those too. Yeah, there will be plenty of charrettes or charrette type opportunities, I guarantee you, on this. Yes?
I was
That's a good call, yeah.
We would absolutely love for that task force to name themselves once they are.
Yeah, good call. Although there is a certain element of sort of twisting the knife on that, but yeah. So, other questions, comments, please? So great comments and questions, all of them. Again, let me start, but in terms of, well, I will say there's a common thread to all of your questions, really, and that is, and we spend a lot of time, energy, and resources at council, believe me, on this, and that is the volume and the robustness of state mandates on local government with regard to housing, density, and population. It's a complicated formula that turns in large part on the number of jobs that you have in your community. So the idea is, as Sacramento does this process called RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, a major factor is how many jobs you have in your community. Respectfully, San Marino and La Cañada are not job heavy. They're not the centers of economic activity like we are. We have something around 100,000 jobs in Pasadena. That's a lot for a city of our size. So it's not just the housing that you have here, it's also a formula. But even beyond that now, I say this, La Cañada and San Marino and every other city are under these mandates of SB 9, the requirement that ADUs, accessory dwelling units, be allowed, that you throw the zoning code out in certain circumstances, that you give a density bonus to the developers if they want it. And it is problematic because you lose some local control, but these problems are real. That you know, the homeless is in part a problem driven by the cost of housing, and you know, if we can build more housing, that will help alleviate to some extent some of the other problems. It's spectacularly complicated. There's litigation pending right now challenging SB 9. There is a movement to have an initiative put on the ballot to override those by some communities. So a lot of moving parts here. The irony is, like so many things, Pasadena is kind of best in class at a lot of these things, and yet we get thrown in with communities that don't want to be part of the solution, don't want to build any housing, don't want to build any affordable housing. In my district, you're familiar with the Westgate complex between Del Mar and Green and DeLacy and Pasadena Avenue. We did a major project with the staff's leadership and help where that's all now going to slowly become workforce affordable housing. So school teachers, cops, firefighters, you name it, you know, are going to be able to have substantial reductions on rent to live, you know, in Pasadena. Those are good projects, but this isn't, there's no quick fix here. It's really complicated. And I'll just tell you, the shortest period of time measurable to mankind is the time it forgets a local official what that's like once he or she goes to Sacramento, because they impose all these mandates on us with no resources really to speak of. So in terms of homelessness, it's a major problem for our city and all cities. And again, legal overlays require that we allow people to sleep on the street if they can't, if we don't have a room for them. So we have to try to do our part in terms of shelters and permanent supportive care. But I'm very outspoken about this. We need a program. We need a federal or state program. You know, I'm not sure there's a greater need in this country right now, certainly for cities, than some program where we will have resources and facilities for those people, because we're going to lose everything if we don't have a safe, clean environment to do the things that we all want to do, including economic activity, jobs, recreation, education. We're going to lose it all, and it is bad. I agree with you. So.
What are we going to do about water?
Another huge problem, right? And it is astonishing sometimes how blind these mandates are to the local governments across the board, for firefighters, police, water, power, you know, streets, all the infrastructure that a city provides. The idea is just, well, you can just add a little more, a little more, a little more, but it does have an impact. And in particular with water, you know, I'm really concerned. And, we should have our Water and Power come and present at our next town hall and talk about that, because I'm not sure there is a solution other than more conservation, but we're all doing a pretty good job of that in my view. So, okay, other questions, comments? Bruce, this is our pickleball. This is Mr. Pickleball in Pasadena, believe you me. My answer would be it's really our decision to manage that issue, and we do have, well, I shouldn't say we have, but there's a couple $100 million in available Measure R funding from the county and the metro, the Metropolitan Transportation, where we've proposed a series of projects to help mitigate local traffic and the 710, sunsetting. So it has to be done, but it's not really coming from Sacramento. It's a function of our own obligations. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I was going to add, we just need to work with Caltrans on some of the on-off ramps to make sure that they're safe. Other than that, Councilmember Madison is correct. It's going to be our decision, working with you all and others and our transportation folks, to make sure that it's safe.
Your timeline was like 25. What was happening by, we'd have a plan by 25?
The idea is to have an approved plan.
And nothing would change until that was approved.
No, there are some projects that Councilmember Madison just mentioned that are adjacent to, that we're working on, that are sort of interim projects, I'll call them, but nothing in this area specifically, not exactly in this area. And those projects are...
No, the gardens doesn't change.
No, sir.
But it shouldn't be overlooked that this parcel is ours. We own it now. And for all the public good that we're going to do there, we also have tremendous economic value there too. Whatever that ends up looking like, again, as a part of a process that together we plan. So that's a very big positive for us.
Your districts need it smaller.
If there are more residents, you mean? Yeah, well, I would happily trade that for getting that property back and doing the things we're going to do there. So, Yarma.
I hope that Pasadena Unified is invited to the planning process.
Absolutely, you bet. Yeah, and college kids were mentioned. I think, kids younger than that should weigh in on this, because they have some interesting ideas too, and it really is true. Like, we have an opportunity to redefine what a sustainable, part of our city looks like. What an area that's going to be, by 2035, we're not allowed to have new carbon-burning automobiles sold in California. So we're going to be converting rapidly to electric. So what does that look like? What's the infrastructure behind that? A lot of really exciting opportunities here. I think we're going to show a lot of people how to do it right, as we have so many times. Bob, hi. Well, I know we're building charging stations ourselves around. There's a yard down at across from Art Center that has a bunch. When I say we're doing it, we're collaborating. I know that on new projects, we had one that was up at the council at the corner of California and Arroyo Parkway, the Affinity Project. And that project would have electric chargers in the parking and all that. But I don't know, David, about older units.
We don't require it retroactively, so we don't force older apartments to do that. To the extent that they want to, we do help them upgrade their electrical panels and vaults if needed. And so it's an issue that we understand and are aware of, but there's no requirement that we're forcing older buildings to do that.
Question I was driving around, we noticed that there is a large number of charging stations on Glen and Arroyo.
That's the one I was mentioning.
The
Yep.
question I have is, do you leave your car there? How do you get home?
You sit in it. You just sit in it.
Yeah, some of them are rapid, depending on the voltage.
So you sit in your car for half an hour?
Some folks.
Yeah, take a nap, read a book. Bob, come on.
It's not very secure over there. It's dark and there's no security, so you're a target.
So noted, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, we should take a look at that. Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah. I'd be derelict if I didn't mention in this meeting, and I think if I'm wrong, please speak up, but I think rent control is going to pass in Pasadena. So I was not a proponent of that. I think even I couldn't find an even left-leaning economist who said it actually worked. But the voters look like they decided that. So, when we talk about some of these issues about density and all, that's an important message that we're hearing. But that, as I read that initiative, it only applies to older units.
1995 and
Yeah. Kind of scary that 95 makes you old, but yeah, so 1995. So, okay, one or two more questions, and then we do have a raffle, I'm told, as we like to do. But yes, sir. So there are 105 homes or so. Caltrans is trying to decide what to do with those. There's legislation that gives them overall direction, and there's sort of a rulemaking process that's underway right now. But we're going to continue to press and try. The sooner we can get those out of Caltrans' hands, and frankly, I think at this point they would agree with us. Because once the freeway thing is over, which it is, they're not very good, and they would admit this at being residential landlords. They do, yeah. Although we've gotten some released, but there's a lot more to come, and that has to happen for sure. Yeah.
Maybe I can add. They've been very
Please.
good, and they're allowing us, as I understand it, to buy the vacant ones at the price that they were worth way back when, and then resell them, and we can use those proceeds for affordable housing, which will help with our homeless problem. So it's a good partnership we have with Caltrans on all around on this process.
Yep, it's true. Yes. Well, I think.
with respect, I was going to, when
Yeah.
the opportunity is correct.
Yes, please. I want you to weigh in, and I would say first, you're so right that it's not particularly availing or accurate to just say the homeless. There are different populations of homeless, and I think you and I, to some extent, are in agreement. I don't know about your comments about the border or anything like that, but I would say there is a significant number of homeless who are sometimes referred to as service resistant. Of course, that assumes that the services are available, which I'm not sure is always true. But they aren't capable, candidly, of filling out an application if we did have housing or complying with the rules and because of mental health issues, substance abuse, and chronic homelessness, over many, many years. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I said we need a real overarching program with resources, permanent supportive care, so that those people can be. Then, of course, there's another whole group, which if you've ever, volunteered at a shelter, you see, people that look just like us that you would never dream. But, they were one paycheck away from losing their apartment, and now they're living in their car with their child or their pet or what have you. So different programs. Yeah. Yeah. Please, David.
Do I need to?
Yeah,
I think
please.
Just very quickly, because I wanted to, thank you, Councilmember, for the opportunity, because I wanted to just remind, so the City Council did adopt a housing element that we're working with the state on. And one of the very important initiatives in there is to ensure that we look at our codes and rules and requirements to increase the amount of transitional housing opportunities that also provide those services for mental health, for drug addiction, and all of those services that you would expect folks like that might need, not just the housing. And so there is a plan. We're working on it, and we acknowledge it. And I think the council has done that through the recent adoption of the housing element. And I know that Mr. Carmona, our Director of Health, can talk about what's going on today in addition to those plans that we're talking about. So I just wanted to share that and let everyone know that there is an acknowledgement of that problem and a proposed solution.
I'll just take a quick second to add on to that. At the Pasadena Public Health Department, we're actually working in partnership with the fire department. We have a Pasadena outreach and response team that's been working for a little over 3 years now. Each team, we actually have 2 teams in the field. Each team has a firefighter, a nurse, and a case manager. And the real value of this model is that we're not going out into the community and reacting to calls for service. What we're actually doing is being proactive, patrolling our streets, making contacts with individuals that we come across, trying to build a relationship with them before they're in crisis. So we're bringing them coffee, We're trying to connect them to resources, substance abuse, mental health treatment, doctor's appointments, getting their driver's licenses, their birth certificates, things that are absolutely needed in order for them to connect to services and get off the streets. In just the year 2021, we're very fortunate that through these efforts in both teams, we were able to place 40 people into temporary or supportive housing. That's a huge number for the city of Pasadena and is really looked at as success amongst health departments across the state. The work is not done. There certainly are no silver bullets, but this work is absolutely necessary in order for us to help people who are in need, who don't know where to turn to when they don't have the things that they need on a daily basis. So I just wanted to share some real success stories. And you know what I would encourage everyone to do, you can call the health department at 626-744-6000 and share your concerns about individuals in your community and your neighborhoods that need help. We'll dispatch our port team and go out there and help them. You can also call the police non-emergency number. And if you can believe this, we're also collaborating with the police department. So when we get calls for folks that are experiencing homelessness, there's a special code. And we get to dispatch our port team. So far since last year, since July 1st, we responded to 522 calls for service, which is amazing. And that means that a law enforcement officer is not responding and our port team is. So it's a great deal of success going on. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think that we're making a dent. We hope that you can help us. Absolutely. Those are great resources for individuals who are in crisis and who are in need of service, like mental health professionals. So the HOPE team has a licensed clinical social worker funded through the LA County Department of Mental Health, and they partner with the patrol officers to provide those services.
And obviously, if you see criminal activity, you should call the police, no question about it, in terms of that park or what have you. Okay, we're going to wrap up. I'll stick around if anybody wants to talk one-on-one, but we do a raffle, as always. Let me do some thanks first, because that includes the raffle donors. Really want to thank Westridge School, Irina Kotsinian. I don't know if Irina's here right now, but we're super grateful. Beautiful room here. I do want to know more about the disco ball, but George Filardo is here, good friend, and our head of Executive Director, CEO of Pasadena Media, Bobby Ferguson, Joe Carbonetta helping us out. We're super grateful always for you all. Jones Coffee, Maria Jones and Chuck Jones, our dear friends, probably donated some raffle items. Jens Whedon, General Manager, Rose Bowl Operating Company, the same. And we had some displays from Pasadena Water and Power, Ursula Schmidt, Water Conservation Programs Manager, and Pasadena PD, Sarah Presley as well. So thank you so much. All right, thank you so much. And can we thank our guests, please? Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.